Hey everybody, it's 2 o'clock on Tuesday, which means I'm cooking in the kitchen. So welcome to my kitchen for Cooking with Evie. So today we're going to be making a no-fuss salmon patty with an avocado mayonnaise. Yum. Before we get started, I just wanted to introduce on my side over here, we have a little visitor today who's going to make sure that what I make is nice, so I stay on his good list. So I hope everybody is entering into this holiday season well and stay safe and healthy. Hopefully this dish will help you do that. Before I get started, I just wanted to give a shout out to all of my Colgate alums. If you're watching, thank you, Bruce, for that shout out during our alum get together on Sunday. Appreciate that. And let's get started. So, I mentioned in the follow-ups to this on Facebook that this is a no-fuss way of making salmon patties. Why? Because it uses canned salmon. And now I know a lot of people are used to tuna, but not used to using canned salmon. I have actually become a great fan of using salmon because it's something that I can have in my pantry at all times and pull out. And once you have a recipe like this one that you know, you'll be able to use it. Pardon me. It's a great staple to have on hand for a quick, easy, delicious meal. I make these patties. I have them for lunch over a salad. You can have them with dinner with different sides, maybe a heartier rice dish or quinoa pilaf. All good. So what's so great about canned salmon, right? Salmon, as we know, is very good for our heart, very good for heart healthiness because it contains a lot of omega-3s. Omega-3s, essential fatty acids, are very difficult for us to get. We can't make them ourselves, so we need to get them from our food. And we need to get enough in proportion to other essential fatty acids that we eat. So it's good when we find a product, a food, that has a lot of the omega-3 fatty acids in it. So this is a pink salmon. You can also get sockeye salmon canned. Very good varieties of salmon for us. They contain vitamin D, which this time of year, when the sun isn't out as much for us in the northern hemisphere here, it's good to get some food source for vitamin D other than the sun. It has B vitamins, has selenium, which is good for our thyroid, which is good for our energy and our mood. It is also high in protein. So protein stays with us. It keeps us feeling satisfied when we eat. You can also get smaller cans. This I actually got from Costco in a big tower of cans. But this is also a great way, and it's economical compared to buying from the fresh from the store. The other thing too is it's wild caught, so you're not getting a farm raised variety. Farm raised tend to have other things added to them, antibiotics, and other chemicals that we don't want to introduce into our diet. One thing to be careful about is mercury. You can get a little bit of mercury in with the salmon, and for that reason, you don't want to only eat the same type of fish over and over and over again. Let me just grab a fork just to break this up a little bit. Now, you can see that in this dish, I don't know whether you can see, but there's actually bones in here. I'm going to lift a few of these out, but you know what? They typically just fall apart on their own. The ones that I don't particularly care for are the ones that are from the spinal column, the vertebrae. So I'm just going to take those out for now. And I'm going to leave the actual spines in there. But you can see it doesn't have the pink color that you might get on fresh fish. Now, Having said that, talked all about canned fish. If you have leftover salmon from the night before, use it in this dish. It's fabulous. So the other ingredient in this dish that is so nice is the addition of sweet potatoes. It keeps it juicy. It adds in beta carotenoids, which is the vitamin A, which is so good for us, for our eyes. And I want to add in about a cup. Now, what I did was I steamed and mashed a sweet potato in this. Don't have sweet potato? No problem. You can also use canned sweet potato or canned pumpkin. So I made this dish ahead of time. I'm kind of telling you ahead that I have some pre-made, but with the pumpkin, so you can see what that is like. But I had some sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes a little bit sweeter, so that's a nice addition to the dish. And I'm going to add in a cup to the dish. Now this was refrigerated, so it got a little stiffer than when you initially take it out. I don't think that that'll be a problem. And I'm going to add in about a cup. Nice thing about this dish too is you don't have to be too precise about the amounts that you're adding, just approximately. All right, so I have my sweet potato in now. Now, the original recipe calls for one whole egg, one large egg. I have eliminated eggs from my diet for a while. I did a food inflammation test, and it showed that eggs are a big inflammatory component in my diet. So I have substituted and started using a flax egg in this recipe. If you are not familiar with what a flax egg is, it's very easy to make. Basically, it's just ground up flax that you add 1 tablespoon of ground up flax to 3 tablespoons water, and you let it sit. And what you will get is something gloopy, just like egg whites. And it performs the same function in the recipe. So 1 tablespoon to 3 tablespoons water makes 1 large egg. I've used this substitute in many recipes. If a recipe has a lot of eggs in it, you really can't do all flax eggs. But if, say, it has 2 eggs, you can do 1 flax egg and 1 regular egg if you want to minimize the amount of egg that's in there. It depends on the type of recipe that you're doing as well. In this recipe, it holds together the patty very nicely. All right. To this, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of almond flour. If you have coconut flour, you can use that as well. Coconut flour tends to be sweeter. You may need to add a little bit more liquid to it because it also absorbs moisture more readily than almond flour. I like the almond flour in this recipe, and I usually stick with that. I have some fresh parsley here, and I am going to chop up about 2 tablespoons, okay, which is about what I have here. Again, it doesn't need to be so exact, but this adds a little bit of flavor and a little bit of color, which is so nice to add into that patty. And then I want to add a little bit of onion flavor in the form of a scallion. The recipe calls for 2 scallions chopped. I only have 1 here. You'll notice I had it in a plastic bag, and this is a damp rag that I use. I like to store my veggies that way in the refrigerator. The rag around it keeps it moist, keeps it from drying out, and the plastic bag also helps with that. So I am just giving a nice thinly sliced scallion here, using most of the scallion that I have. It's not very tough. The greens are not very tough here, so I'm going to use those. So I have one scallion, and since I only had one instead of two scallions, I have some pre-chopped red onion. I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of that chopped onion, just to give it that little bit extra oniony flavor. And then I want to add my seasonings, and what goes really well with salmon? Dill. So you can use fresh dill. You can use 2 tablespoons of fresh dill, or I'm using dried dill here. I'm going to put in about 2 teaspoons of dried dill. Rule of thumb, fresh herbs are about 3 times the volume of dried. So 2 tablespoons of my dill is 2 teaspoons of my dried dill. So I add in my dill. I'm going to add in about a half teaspoon of hot pepper sauce. I'm just going to estimate like that. Give a few good shakes. If you like a lot of heat, put in more. All right, I'm going to add in about a half teaspoon of paprika. This is a sweet paprika, not a smoked. But I bet a smoked paprika would taste pretty good in here as well. This also adds a nice little color to it because it isn't as pink as a fresh salmon. I'm going to add in about a half teaspoon of my salt. Okay. And about a 1/4 teaspoon of my ground black pepper. And those are all the ingredients. Now all I have to do is mix them in and form them into my patties. I preheated my oven to 425 degrees. I'm going to bake this for 20 minutes on a baking sheet that's lined either with parchment or with a silicone sheet. And I have the silicone pad, and I'll show you what that looks like. I just want to give this a nice, good mix. And I want to show you the consistency of it so you can see. Now, the batch that I made last night with the canned pumpkin was actually a little bit juicier than this one. It'll be interesting to see how this one comes out versus the other. All right. Let me get my tray. Here's my tray. This is the silicone sheet that I use. What's nice about this is things don't stick to it, so I don't have to worry about greasing it. If you're using parchment, I would say give it a little bit of a light coating of olive oil or coconut oil. I am going to use a little bit of coconut oil to put on top of my patties when they're done. Each patty is probably going to be about a cupful. I like to put it into a cup and then just with my hands pat it down. And if you can see here, what I'm going to do is just pat it until it's about a 1/2 inch thick. And this recipe will make about 6 of these patties. And if I did it right, it all comes out into an equal portion. Sometimes I need to go back and add some to one and take some away from the other. But I know about the size they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be about 2.5 to 3 inches around. And that helps me gauge it. All righty then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these into the oven and let them bake, as I said, 20 minutes on one side at 425, and then I'm going to turn them and let them bake 10 minutes more. If you've greased them well, they won't stick, but when you flip them midway, just be careful. I use a nice metal spatula so that I can get under them, because sometimes the outer coating does like to stick just a little bit. All right, I've got one more here. I did pretty good estimating. All right. And you can see how I just kind of pat them down. It's important to get them all about the same thickness so that they cook at the same rate. There you have it. All right, so I'm going to go put those in the oven. And I'm going to clean my hands a little bit. Okay. Here we go. So now let's talk about our avocado mayonnaise, shall we? This is delicious. And you don't have to use this mayonnaise just for this dish. You can use this on any number of things. And it actually tastes very good on eggs. If you're doing sort of a deviled egg kind of a thing. All right. So the real trick with this is that we want to have caramelized onions in our dish. Let me just grab my things here. I have my tray of ingredients right here. All right, I got to make some room here. Taking over. Let's just switch out some of these ingredients. You should see my kitchen sometimes. Oh my goodness. Things do get messy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just finely slice half an onion. It's not very big. It's a small onion. And I'm going to slice it into very thin slices. Go. As you can see, very thin slices. And what I'm going to do is, I have this nice little cast iron skillet. I like to use a cast iron skillet for caramelizing onions. So I'm going to put a nice heat under this. I'm going to heat it up. I'm going to add my olive oil. I'm going to let the olive oil heat up, and then I'm going to add my onions in there, and I'm going to let them caramelize. If you're really doing a nice caramelize, it takes about 20 minutes for these onions to get nice and brown. If you find that they're starting to burn, add a little bit of water to it or a little bit of broth so that they get plumped up again, but don't burn on you. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to add a little bit of my oil. I'm going to let that heat up. And then I'm going to add in my onions. Now, luckily for us, I did this yesterday. So here are my caramelized onions. So let me just add this into my food processor. Let me rinse off my spatula here. All right, so I'm going to add that in. And then the original recipe for this called for basil. But since I'm doing this with the salmon, I'm going to go back and use some of that dried dill that I have. The original recipe, let's see, calls for about a tablespoon of fresh basil, which is about a teaspoon of my dill. So that's exactly what I'm going to use, a teaspoon of dried dill. I'm going to add in 1 garlic clove. Come back. Run away, garlic clove. I'm going to give that, I don't even bother to peel that garlic clove. I just smash it, and that skin comes right off. So I'm just going to give that a good chop. A coarse chop, nothing major. And I'm going to add that right into my food processor. And I'm going to add in a little bit of sea salt. I've got, I'm going to add in maybe, I'm going to add in a 1/4 teaspoon to start, because I can always add more later on. All right. And I'm going to just give it a good chop. Sorry for the noise. I love having this little mini prep food processor. It makes things so much easier than the bigger one that I have. All right. Okay. So what I would like to do now is add the special ingredient, avocado. Again, another very healthy food for us. Avocados have very good unsaturated fats. They also have fiber. Let me grab a spoon and a knife, and I'll show you how I like to cut an avocado. So as you saw, I just cut it in half. And then with my knife, I'll score it going down this way. And I usually use a butter knife so that I don't accidentally cut my hand. Excuse me. Popular today. And then I turn it 90 degrees and score it again the other direction so that I get this nice grid in there. And then all you have to do is scoop it out into your food processor. Voila. I'm going to do the same thing with my other half. Now, here's another trick with avocados. You don't want to be trying to gouge it out that pit. So what I do is I put my knife on top and I hit it from the top, give it a twist, and it pops right out. So, again, I'm going to score this and add it to my food processor. All right. So I have make sure I have all my ingredients in here, right? Okay, well, add avocados. Okay, I want to add a little bit of olive oil, about a tablespoon of olive oil. And I'm going to add some lime juice. I took this lime because we used it for zest the other night, so I need to use it up. You could use lemon as well. And I want to get about a tablespoon of juice in there. If you saw me, I was rolling the lime on the cutting board. That releases some of the juices. But then I also like to stab the cells, the juice cells, with a fork. And you can see juice already starts just to come out on its own, even before I start squeezing it. Smells good. It smells like summer. All right. Oh, that's a nice juicy one. That's good. I want about a tablespoon of juice. I want to make sure. Yep. About a tablespoon of juice. And I'm thinking this was a very juicy lime. So I'm going to go with 1/2. Usually I'm using a whole. But I'm going to hold off. I can always add more later on, remember. So I'm going to then Give this another good spin. Because I want it nice and creamy. All right. And then just a few more items to add in. I'm going to add in a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Ooh, it's pungent apple cider vinegar. I'm at the bottom of the bottle. It tends to get quite strong by that time. And I want to add in a little bit of sweetness. So I'm going to add in a scant tablespoon of honey. It's probably closer to 2 teaspoons. All right. Just going to clean out that spoon. A lot seems to stick at the bottom of those spoons with honey. All right. Okay, that is it. Let's blend it up. Okay. I'm going to scrape it down a little bit. Ooh, it's nice and smooth. Now, if you really, really want it blended very, very well, you can use a blender. All right, and there we have it. All right, so let me go grab those patties. Here we are from the oven. There you go. And what I would like to do is just show you how we can plate this. So, just take this to the side. Put that in the container there. And I will use that onion for later on. Do a little wipe here. Clean everything up. Excellent. Let's see, my placement. Don't want to burn my hands. All right. There we go. So, here we have our patty. I'm just going to place it on my dish here over some salad maybe. And I'm going to put on a dollop of my avocado. And maybe a little bit of that dill. And there we have it. Our delicious dish. And I'm just going to taste a little bit. Give you an idea of how that came out. And also give you an idea of how it cuts. Let me just move this out of the way. Okay. So, here we have it. And I'm just going to take a little bit here. show you, and then I'm going to get to taste it. I think the avocado mayonnaise came out perfectly. I don't think I'd want to add more of the lime juice or the salt. It had just the right bit of zing and sweetness to balance with the salmon patty. So there you have it. So I hope you get a chance to enjoy this. If you'd like to use an egg instead of a flax egg, by all means do. Eggs are very healthy for us. Please stay healthy. Stay sane this time of year. It's awfully busy. And I will see you again next week, Tuesday at 2 p.m. in my kitchen. If you'd like to get more recipes like this, go to my webpage. It's eveyschweig.com. Look under the recipe tab or go to the blog section, because every month I have a free newsletter with my blog. But I also attach recipes. Usually there's a recipe attached to each one of those blogs. I have another one coming out tomorrow or Thursday that will feature this recipe as well as one other in a list of 5 kind of underrated superfoods that we should be using or we should be adding to our diet, of which canned salmon was one of them. So I hope to see you next week. Bye all. Stay well.